Good afternoon. And now for the final segment of the program, and we hopefully save the best for last for you. We have three dairy producers to talk about the concept of managing corn silage for high producing herds, and to go through how they manage corn silage and how they fit it into their herd production. To lead this program off, Jeff Harding has accepted the responsibility of doing this. Jeff is a territory manager for Perdue AgriBusiness, but most importantly, he's one of the outstanding members of our Nutrition Conference Planning Committee. So Jeff, I'll turn it over to you.
Well, thanks, Judd. So welcome to you all, and thanks for being with us today. I guess just a little bit of background. When we sat down as a planning committee almost a year ago, we talked about what was relevant and what was new for Pennsylvania dairy producers and Northeastern dairy producers. And, you know, one of the things that's most important to us in the Northeast is how we feed our cows is corn silage. And frankly, it's the basis for most all rations, maybe not all rations, but most of them. And a tremendous amount of importance in how we plant it, how we plan for it, how we harvest it, how we feed it, how we manage it. And I guess the really cool thing is now we have the ability, after all these years of doing that, of looking back and saying, what are the things we did really well and what are the mistakes we made, and how can we do better going forward? So who better to tell us that than three dairymen from across the state, all with that farm a lot of acres, all that raise a lot of corn silage, and all that have extremely high herd averages, make a lot of milk. And most of these guys, and they'll tell you as we go through this, how much of their rations are corn silage. And I think we want to learn a little bit about what their journey was. So what were we doing 10 years ago or 15 years ago, and how has that transpired into what we're doing today, how we're managing our corn silage programs today. So you think about it, it wasn't really very long ago till our rations on dairies were dry square bales of hay and a shovel full of corn silage, and then whatever grain it took to make our milk. And we've evolved over time, and it wasn't really very long ago till nobody would go over 50% corn silage in a ration. And as you guys are all aware, today, we've got gentlemen farms feeding 80% of their forage in corn silage, and even 100% in some cases. So how we manage it and how we maximize that product is really, really important for us going forward. So I'm not going to spend a lot more time. We've got three, like I say, outstanding speakers. We've got Walt Moore from Chester County. We've got Ben Mullen from Bradford County and Canton up there, and Tony Brubaker from Mount Joy and Lancaster County. And many of you will recognize those names, but we're going to give you the opportunity to learn a little bit more about their dairies, their families, and then their philosophy on how they manage corn silage. So with that, I guess let's start with Ben. Why don't you start, since you're from the north, and then we'll work our way south if that works for you. So you're up there almost in New York, Ben, but if you can tell us a little bit about your dairy and your operation, we'll start with you.
Okay. You can see my slides there now. So my name is Ben Mullen. We're from Bradford County. Me and my wife Carla farm with her parents, Jay and Faye Good. So we're actually located in Canton, about 25 miles below the New York State border. My slides to work here. This is Jay and Faye. We've been partners with them for about 12 years. 12 years now. So here's a picture of our family. So 5 children, 4 girls and a boy, ages 11 to 9, 7, 5, and 3. So our son Zane is second to youngest. We told him that he had one chance to get a brother and it didn't work out. So that's where we stopped. Here's a overview of our farm. We have quite a small footprint for the amount of animals we have, and they're pretty much all in this one location. You have the heifer barns kind of on the perimeters of the buildings there. In the summertime, we do have some on pasture and another farm not too far away. I guess I put this picture in here. You can see some of our storage for corn silage and forage. That's what we're talking about today. So the farm started out with one concrete silo and 2 concrete silos, and now we're up to 10 at the home farm here. No, the last one you built was always, the next one you built was always going to be the last one, but it just kept growing. On the upper side of the picture, there's a corn silage bunker we put in 2014. So that was the last feed storage we built. A little bit about our herd. We have a rotary parlor. You can see here in the picture, milking 700 cows through that parlor right now. It's the most we've ever had. We're going to sell some here shortly, just from a crowding circumstance. 82 to 85 pounds is where we've been in the last month. A little bit of a dip in production because of transitioning on to new feed, but with that we have better components. We bumped up to a 3.8 butter fat, 3.1 protein, and we've last year and a half we've been below 100 on our cell count. So our crops and our tillage, a little bit about that. We're farming 1,300 acres, 650 acres of corn. Within that, probably, I think we had 140 left over for high moisture this year. The rest of it went for corn silage. 650 acres of hay. We tried for mostly alfalfa and grass mixture. It's been a little tougher the last few years with all the precipitation we've gotten and the harder winters on the alfalfa. Double cropping 300 acres. This year, 200 of that will be rye or triticale, and 100 acres of sod that gets rotated into corn. We take the first cutting hay off, then plow it for corn. With our rotations, you know, we have a few non-HCL fields we can go corn on corn with, maybe 100 acres or so. But a lot of our ground is hill ground. It has strips in it. So we have 4 and 4 rotations. They're pretty common, 4 years of hay, 4 years of corn. Our tillage is conventional or deep tillage. We use a subsoiler a lot, the heavier soils up here to get a good alfalfa crop. And it does help quite a bit with the corn also, especially on a dry year like this. Those roots could get down and get to the moisture. Talking about corn silage, I think quality corn silage is really, really important. It starts with picking out the varieties for us. We have quite a spread of maturity here. We're 92 days to 116-day relative maturity corn silage. You know, we can get started early by tilling the ground. We can get it opened up and drying out. So the end of April, we can be planting up here this longer day corn, and when we end up with the sod that we turn over to rotate, we're getting down to that 100-day corn, 90-day corn. So we pick these varieties on tonnage and digestibility. The digestibility just keep getting better and better, and that's how we're able to feed more corn silage in our rations. We also use the PDMP corn silage trials to find the best varieties that'll work for us. Say the past 5 years, it's quite a few varieties we found in there that really stood out and works well for a silage program. The other part of quality corn silage is our fertility and our crop care. You know, pretty extensive soil sampling program and fertilizer application. So the last few years, we've gotten a situation where we had to side dress our own liquid nitrogen. The company that was doing it decided not to do liquid anymore. But with that, we've found that we're able to do a little better job, get it in the right place at the right time, and getting the most out of that application. The last four years, we've been doing fungicide. Seems to be a little more common up in the north here. We have a helicopter come in to do that, and they've been doing a great job. They fit us in and they get it done in a timely manner. We've seen the benefit on that with our Stay Green. You know, those crops that were specific for corn silage, where they're healthier when they're being chopped. They're still green, and the healthy plant going into the bunker, the silo, makes healthy and high quality corn silage coming out into the ration. Here's a picture of our silos. We're using 12 right now. There's a couple of the other farms that have silos on too. Not far away. We're only going about 2 miles for all our crop needs. So we're blessed with a nice radius around the farm to be able to get all our crops in. These silos here have 11,000 tons when they're full to capacity, and then you have multiple refills during the year with different cuttings of hay and things like that. We also have 5,000 tons of corn silage in a bunker silo. So we built this with 4,000 tons in mind, but you can see the walls didn't stop us from going further. So there's 16-foot walls. In the back of it, they have 8-foot walls, so we can drive over the pile. We're still chopping into wagons, so we get our compaction that way. So each wagon basically goes over that pile and really gets a good solid compaction for us. When we get to the top, we have you can see here we have a neighbor come in. He has this articulated tractor. He helps us to push and pack and get it sealed off at the top. So we're really happy with the bunker. One of the main reasons was, the speed of it, but also the biggest silo we have is 30 feet by 116 feet tall, and you have to wait for the corn to get so dry to even start that silo. You're losing quality, we felt. So with the bunker, we can get in here earlier at 35% moisture, and still have a really good product. We use 2 layers of plastic. You can see the plastic over the wall. We wrap the top where we can to prevent spoilage along the edges. I was up a silo one day and just happened to see this, so I thought I'd take the picture of it from bird's eye perspective, I guess. So that's what it is when it's all done. So there are some challenges of growing corn silage up here. Obviously we have the weather. Our later corn silage we can get caught sometimes. The picture on the right was 2015. Up here we got 15 inches of rain the first week of September, and we struggled the rest of the harvest. We chopped everything we could downhill in one way, and eventually we just had, we hooked onto the choppers and pulled them through, and we had a self-propelled that we took some roofs off and just had to go alongside and chop, and we still couldn't get full loads. But this year was great. We didn't have that issue, but a lot of times we can get that problem. The picture on the left is last couple of years we've had a lot of bear damage. This is a 550-pound bear they got in our cornfield during deer season. This is the 3rd bear that year. This is the biggest one, but it seems one of these guys can do as much damage as 30 to 40 deer. So we're continue to work on them. So some benefits of feeding quality corn silage. As far as tonnage per acre, it's very consistent. Even the drier years like this, when our corn performed well, a little bit shorter tonnage, but we got the timely rains. We had great grain in it, and digestibilities were much better when the corn gets stressed a little bit. Works well in a double cropping situation, so we're still able to get a first cutting off, or a rye or a triticale, and get a good corn silage crop behind it. So this year's a great year to talk about the high corn silage diets. For us, we're typically 40, 60, 40% haylage, 60% corn silage, or even 50%. But this year, we're feeding 60% corn silage, and at this point. Maybe we're going to change a little bit more, but so backing off the alfalfa, I thought we're going to be spending a little bit more money on soy meal and buying protein, but it didn't work out that way. With the high digestibility of the plant, the corn silage and the microbial protein naturally produced in the rumen has been a benefit, and we're not having to buy as much soy as I thought we were going to replace the alfalfa in the feed. So turned out to be a good situation. Also, kernel processors, just in the last 10 or 15 years, continue to make a big difference. We used to try to pick the varieties for the softer starches that the cows could utilize, but now we have the kernel processors. You can really dial in what you need, how you need the starch processed, and get all of it available to the cows. Another benefit is milk per acre and input cost. Corn silage is potentially the most profitable crop we can grow if we do everything right, we feed it right, we take care of it, and we can get those high yields per acre. So just a rough idea of our rations with the corn silage. Our lactating cows are, I guess we're up to one third haylage, 2/3 corn silage right now because of the low volume of haylage we got this year for the lack of precipitation. Our pregnant and close-up heifers are about 3/4 haylage or dry hay, 1/4 corn silage. And those ones we're not feeding too much extra grain to. They wouldn't get any other corn besides what's in the corn silage. 9 months to 15-month-old heifers, just a hair more corn silage, 1/3 and 2/3 haylage. And even the little ones we have on TMR, they get top dressed with grain to supplement them. But so 2-month-old to 9-month-old heifers, about half haylage and half corn silage. So just about everything on the farms is getting corn silage. So that's an overview of what we are and how we feed corn silage and what our expectations for about it. And this is just a picture of the cows eating, and we seem to overcrowd, but if we always keep a full bunk and good quality feed in front of them, they do well for us. So that's what I have to share with you today.
So thanks, Ben. Really nice recap of your dairy there, and appreciate that sharing those insights so far. So that's a really good start for us. So with that, let's continue to move south. We've got Tony Brubaker with us from Brubaker Farm. So Tony, why don't you go ahead and share a little bit of what you've got there?
Okay, yeah. Thanks again, Jeff and panel. I'm Tony Brubaker, and I'm representing Brubaker Farms LLC in Mountjoy, Lancaster County. This is just a sky view of our what we call Dairy One. And I'm just going to walk through some slides here. They're not quite as detailed as what Ben's are, and but I do have a few notes, and we'll talk about them as we go. So this is my family, 3 children, and my wife, Rebecca. My oldest, Peter, is currently full-time on the farm. He works in the shop and equipment operating end of things. He would be 4th generation at Brubaker Farms. And this is my brother, Mike, and his family. Mike holding his grandson, Finn. And then on the right side of the screen, Josh and Kylie. Josh is also a partner now in Brubaker Farms, and also 4th generation. So a little about our farm. We were established in 1994 as Brubaker Farms as a partnership between our father, Luke, my brother, Mike, and myself. We built a dairy then for 350 cows. We consolidated my dad and uncle's herds. They bought out their partnership. They had 200 cow tie stall operations. In 2014, Mike and I completed the buyout of our parents, and we became 50-50 partners and also incorporated. Then in 2020, Josh joined in ownership with us now. We grew incrementally over the years from the 350 cows to the 1,330 cows that we're currently at. We raise all of our replacements, and we raise all of our forages, corn for grain, soybeans for roasting, and also the straw from wheat on about 1,800 acres. Again, I crawled up on our grain bin to just do a kind of a walk around the farm a little bit. You can see we farm pretty close to town. We've estimated that we farm up against about 200 backyards. We've been very fortunate to have good neighbor relations, though. The picture of our main heifer barn and some of our calf barns. And then we do also have 2 chicken houses that we raise chickens on contract for Tyson. You can also see that we have about 300 kilowatts of solar panels on our roofs. Again, this is just the other side, 2 of our bunkers. The one closest to us is Silage, and then the other one's corn silage. Then our 3 other bunkers, all 3 corn silage. Commodity shed, and behind the mixer there is where the mixer pulls down, and we have a lot of our fine commodities in bins that are augered in to the mixer in that area that we mix in. Bunker faces, a mill that we use to mill the faces of our bunker. So some of the things, so in the picture in the background here, you see that building is what we call Dairy 2. And if you look to the right of the screen, you can see the grain bin across the field. That's Dairy 1. They're a mile apart, and we milk it. There's 2 locations, but it's 1 herd, as you see in the notes here. But we utilize BMR corn silage, and but we also raise conventional corn silage. Our diet typically runs between 80 and 85% corn silage. But we also split the corn silage. Like right now we're at 75% BMR and 25% conventional in the diet. And then the other, right now about 17% of the forage is silage. We do a lot of double cropping. We double crop about 850 acres with rye and corn silage. We also double crop about 300 acres of wheat with soybeans. And we feed a low energy transition diet, and just one transition diet for the whole transition period. We do milk, like I said, at 2 locations. But it is 1 herd. We do all the transition and freshening at Dairy 1, and then at Dairy 2 is where we milk, and we have all of our fresh cows at Dairy 1 as well. But then the mature cows get moved to Dairy 2, where the stalls are bigger and size better for mature cows. And we milk about 600 at each location. Dairy 2 is just slightly bigger than Dairy 1. We bed with digested biosolids. We have 3 cow rations. That would be the transition ration. We have a startup ration, and then all the rest of the cows are fed the same TMR. We have 3 heifer rations as well. And the heifer rations would be by age. The oldest ration would be basically 100% rye as the forage. Sometimes we put some straw in if we need to keep the heifers in proper condition. Then the middle-sized ration would have a little bit of corn silage in, but again, primarily silage. And in that ration, we also feed the feedbacks from the dairy herd. And then the smaller heifer ration would be a much higher in corn silage, and we start that at 2.5 months of age. We are 100% no-till and have been for about 25 years now. We utilize drag line for as much manure application as we can, and we're hoping to continue to expand that into the future. here's just a picture of one of our piles being filled. We typically have one tractor pushing and 2 tractors packing. Each of the packing tractors has one of the rollers on the back. We line the bunker walls with plastic. Then we also use an air barrier, which we just call saran wrap. Then we also put a top cover, and the sidewalls, we size them so that the plastic on the sidewalls actually folds in and touches in the middle. So what we end up with is 3 layers of plastic on the top to preserve the quality. We have been using shredlage for the last number of years, and it's probably been about 5 years now that we've been using a shredder for the corn silage. And this year, something that we just started feeding Plenish soybeans, and I'm not sure if Plenish is spelled right. I've never actually seen it spelled. I've just seen it, I've heard it pronounced. So that may be the wrong spelling, but different type of soybean that is supposed to push components on cows. So our herd for the last year has averaged 97.2 pounds energy corrected with a 109,000 somatic cell count. Currently, we're at 99.3 pounds energy corrected and 129,000 somatic cell count. One of the things that we've worked hard on here over the last number of years has been data management, and I'm going to try to, without messing things up too much, I'm going to try to share a different screen, if you can bear with me for a moment. Okay, so this is something that my nephew designed using Google Sheets, and this has been a really helpful tool to us for a lot of reasons. One, being 2 dairies, we have all the information from 2 separate dairies, dairy 1 and then dairy 2, but then it's all combined and weighted averages into the total so that we can see what our herd is doing as a complete herd. So we have an input sheet that looks like this. So every day, put in the number of cows in the herd, number milking at each farm, number in the hospital, the milk pickup, then the components, Mullen and somatic cell count as they come in. We also put in the dry matter intake for each farm and the cost per pound of dry matter. And that cost per pound of dry matter is with market value on the forages and grains. And then we have our milk price and also our how many full-time worker equivalents we have. So with those numbers, this other spreadsheet then pulls the numbers off the input sheet and gives us our all of our daily information, but it also then gives us our total pounds of components, our average somatic cell count. It breaks it into energy corrected milk, fat corrected, Mullen, percent in the hospital, percent overcrowding. And then over here, can you see my mouse on the screen?
Yes.
Okay. So you see what the dry matter intake, but what we've really seen, and this is what's really helped us a lot, is the feed efficiency numbers. When we started feeding the BMR corn silage, we initially went 100% BMR in the ration with the rilage. The cow's dry matter intake went way up, the milk went way up, but our feed efficiency tanked. And which then of course pushed our cost per pound of energy corrected milk and feed cost per 100 weight, and lowered our income over feed costs. And so that's when we heard a study that suggested putting conventional in as something to slow it down in the gut. And what we found is when we added some conventional in, then it really slowed it down, and we were able to keep the milk, but get the feed efficiency that we were looking for. And so you can see this number up here. This is the feed efficiency that we've averaged for the last year. And so this spreadsheet really gives us the opportunity to see what's happening whenever we make changes in the diet as far as our cost, efficiency, and how the cows are responding. And that's something that has been really, really helpful for us in managing the cows. That's all I have for my presentation. I'll rely on questions for anything else.
So thank you, Tony. That was really good. Thank you for sharing. Thanks for that, pulling that spreadsheet up. That'll, I'm sure will generate some questions. And if we were in front of a group of nutritionists, I can guarantee you that there would be lots of, you might be able to sell that by the end of the hour session. Things went well. So yeah, thanks for doing that. Thanks for sharing. So let's move on to Walt. Walt, if you can share a little bit about your dairy. Walt Moore from Chester County, Southern Chester County, he says. So Walt, you're up.
Thanks, Jeff. Thanks for inviting me out onto this panel and be part of the nutrition conference. Walt Moore, I'm fourth generation, been in our family 111 years. We're located in Southeast Chester County, about 15, 20 minutes from the Maryland and Delaware borders, 45 minutes west of Philadelphia. We're little history of our farm. My great grandfather moved to this farm with 20 cows, and my grandfather went to 40 cows in partnership with him, and my father decided he needed to go to 60 and got to that 2 years out of college and decided to keep going. So in the early 70s, he decided and started milking it, built and milked three different locations, which is what I mostly grew up with. So when I went off to Penn State in 1985, he was milking somewhere between 420 and 450 cows at 3 locations. Came back, graduated in 89, and in 92, we formed Walmoore Holsteins, and I joined the business, which has been the operating entity, still milking at 3 locations. At that time, I wanted to start consolidating, and by 95, we had gone from milking from 450 to about 525 cows and consolidated down to 2 locations. We started expanding an old parlor, built a new barn, so on and so forth. 97, we went from 2 to 1, and we grew to about 630 cows, which we were topped out at capacity there. We kind of stayed there for the most part, sold extra animals till 2007. We had an alley scraper in that barn, continued to milk in an old double 9, and we decided to go to flush, put that in sand lane, switched to sand bedding, pulled out mattresses, and things really started taking off from there. And we built another barn that 08 and went to 700 cows. And then in 09, we built our new milking center, which at the time was a double 12 expandable to double 18, which we did a few years later. Continued to basically build a barn every year, whether it be transition or so on and so forth. Also added as those things continued, you continue to need more heifer space, and you continue to have more manure and more bunkers for feed. So in all those years we were adding, seemed like we were building something all the time. And we finally topped out in 2018. I built one more 120 stall barn, which pushes us up to 1,050 cows. And that all at milking and dry cows are all at that main location. We do have young stock at 3 other farms that we own, plus we partner with 2 other farms. One raises just wet calves, picks them up less than a week old and brings them back at 16 weeks of age. And then we raise them from there. And then we also work with another farmer that has about anywhere from 130 to 150 of our heifers, which would be anywhere from 4 months up to breeding or pregnant. We do all the breeding. We bring them all back and do our own breeding at one of the locations for the young stock. The main young stock dairy, one's located very close to our dairy, so we just feed that out of the forages with our dairy cows. The other one's located a couple miles away, and it has its own bunkers, and that has been very nice from a forage management standpoint, because we can partition forages that we want more specifically for the cows or more specifically for the heifers. Also, if you get caught, get something wet or less desirable, tend to put that away in the heifer bunk, and we can keep it away from the cows. So that's been a nice way to kind of manage. They also have their own manure storages, which is a good and bad. Adds complexity to it, but at the same breath, we're not. It makes it more efficient where we have land right around those heifer facilities, so we can bring the forages close and the manure close. So we're not hauling as far as well. So we've been currently, I've got 13 full-time employees in partnership with my wife, Ellen. She manages all the record keeping, does some of and payroll and all that stuff, does some of the heifers records and those things as well. Got an outside crew and then our dairy crew, about 50% Hispanic, 50% Anglo. So continue to learn more Spanish every day. So also farming about 1,800 acres, about 1,000 of it's in corn, 650-ish every year for corn silage. The rest we harvest for grain. In a good year, we have enough grain to carry us without buying. We have anywhere from 100 to 150 acres of soybeans. We mostly do that just for cash crop and for rotation. We also do anywhere from 130 to 180 acres of triticale. We actually double crop with corn on close acreage to the dairy, and a little bit of wheat, and we double that with wheat beans. And then we're also still gluttons for punishment. We farm about 450 acres of alfalfa. We typically harvest 4 times, sometimes 5 times a year. We have moved into the last 2 years, we've planted all in low lignin alfalfa. So right now we're at 50% of our crop is low lignin. By next spring we'll be at 75%. We also, like Tony said, we are growing BMR corn silage and conventional corn silage. We are blending it as well. Very similar numbers to what Tony's talking about. We're at about 75% or 80% total diet corn silage, and about 75% of that's BMR, 25% conventional. In the high milking groups, we do have 5 different lactating diets. The low groups, there's 2 low groups, they get 100% conventional corn silage, and our dry cows get conventional corn silage. And heifers also. On the heifer diets, from about 10 months and up, all the way to springing, they get about a 2/3 haylage diet, 1/3 corn silage. The younger heifers typically get about a 50-50 corn silage haylage diet. That varies a little bit, but that's generally where it falls. We also do have about 200 acres of permanent grass ground. We graze hay out, just grass hay for dry cows primarily. And we do supplement anywhere from 1 to 3 pounds of dry hay in the lactating diets as needed. And we big bale that into 4x4 bales. We have it custom done to baling. We do the rest of the work. As far as tillage and that, we have moved we're subsoil on about 1/3 to half our acres every year. In the last couple of years, we went to an accelerator, a vertical till machine. 7 to 8 years ago, at least now. That's our primary tillage tool. We no-till what we can. I still haven't figured out how to no-till everything and still tanker. We feel like we get too much compaction. So we want to at least hit it work that top bit to get the wheel tracks out. We feel like we get better emergence from our corn and stuff by doing that. And we do in extreme conditions, I will pull a chisel plow out here and there if we've really tracked the field up hard or something to break up some of that soil. But that's move towards very minimal tillage at this point. We cover crop just about everything, whether we harvest it or not. So that's in the last couple of years, we've actually started putting cover crop in standing beans once the leaves started falling off, and we've seen good results with that. So we don't have to work that in, but we've got a nice cover there when they come off. Let's see what else. herd metrics were October, we averaged 95.8 pounds in a tank at a 373, I think it was, and 305 protein, 134 somatic cell. So we're doing pretty well right there. Still like to get below 100 somatic cells. So kudos to you guys that are doing that. That's great. Trying to think what else to talk about here. Yeah, I didn't advance any slides or anything. I'm just rattling. There's a farm sign. me standing in front of the farm sign. I just wanted to show us a picture of a corn silage trench that we actually just put in this fall. This is conventional. They had uncovered it, much like Tony said. We do side tarps, but we don't go all the way to the center. But we do side tarps. We also do a barrier film and then another coat of 6 mil plastic, and you can see the tire rings there. I'm adamant about getting it packed hard and covered immediately. And this was the day we opened it up, and I thought, well, they just took skid loader on there and took one little pass, and I was thought pretty impressed with the lack of spoilage. So always happy when we see that. That's chopper. What you can see of it, that was a BMR corn. I think Ben talked about fungicide. We do. I've just gotten back into BMR last 4 years. I tried it early on, did not use it, didn't like the results. And now we've been back into it, liking the results, getting good yields. But we are one thing we do differently is we put fungicide on all the corn, on the BMR corn side. I don't do it on any other corn. And we've seen good results. Stay green. I agree with him. Good plant health right up to the end. And we also added these carts after 18. And then the spring of 19, we couldn't get trucks through the fields, just destroying the soil, compaction, everything. So we've added 2 of these carts, and man, they're great. We love them. And we also added now floater tires on 2 of our dump trucks. By going bigger trucks and bigger carts, we've actually been able to cut out 1 to 2 trucks, which makes, from efficiency standpoint, is great, and really cut back on compaction. So pleased with that. And that's a JCB there in the front of that. And that thing does over 40 miles an hour. So it's basically a truck anyway. So, and then we can use it for other stuff. This is just one of the silos. We do have most of our silos. Well, we do all with walls. We don't have any drive over piles. We have all articulates at this point. We have 2 blades and a roller. We're always running 1 blade and 1 roller. And then if we really get pushed, we'll put a 3rd one on that can help blade or just pack. And much like you guys, Tony, I think showed you, we also run sideways where we can if we need to. Feel that's critical. This is what defacer talked about. That's what a well-defaced silo looks like. We love that. I didn't take a picture. I think Tony had one, but they're a neat machine, and we use it on our haylage as well. Really like that. Keeps stuff packed tight. Keeps that face really fresh. So. Another thing I think you mentioned, we talked about shrink somewhere in our questions coming up, but we added these bins a while ago and feel that we got away primarily from commodity sheds because we just felt like tremendous amount of loss. And these upright bins, the companies are more than willing to bring it in. So it really dramatically cuts down on waste. And then also I think the accuracy, in that you don't over dump a couple 100 pounds of this ingredient, you're within 10 or 20 pounds on those augers, and that consistency every day pays off, and it really helps with the shrink too. So there's a vertical till machine, just talked about the tillage. And that's just one of our little, we're on 41. We got about 30,000 people drive by us every day, and we painted these silos 2 years ago, and we've gotten a lot of good compliments about them. So I thought that was a good note to end on. So I think I'll pause there.
Thank you, Walt. Better come up for air there. That was good, really good. Yeah, so thank you, gentlemen, all for sharing those thoughts. And again, I think one of the neat things is you all talked about things a little bit differently, gave us a little bit different perspective, and brought up a lot of interesting questions. So before we go any further, having gone through the slides, are there anything else that you guys want to say, or that maybe you saw somebody else mention that you think is appropriate you might want to share with the group? If you do, speak up. Ben, you and Tony were the first two to go. So anything that jumped that you wish you would have said after you got done with your going through your slides?
Our corn silage, the corn we grow is all conventional. We don't grow any BMR. We've done a little bit in trials here. It hasn't performed with our wetter soils or tougher ground as well as what we weren't willing to take the yield drag, I guess. So I forgot to mention that. Other than that, we're pretty good.
Okay.
Yeah, I thought of too a couple of things. I mean, I did say we're 100% no-till. We have a Salford, which is a vertical tiller. We run that over all of our rye acres before we plant corn. It doesn't turn anything under. It just kind of fractures. It's like an aerator, basically. It helps the planter to get a better, a more consistent planting and emergence in the spring. So that was a good point, Walt, you made. We do also use fungicide on all of our corn silage acres and any corn that we have that's corn after corn. But we put it on with the sprayer on the second pass. We're not going over top of tasseled corn. We're just going on with the fungicide second pass with the sprayer. I guess the other thing that I don't think I mentioned is of our BMR, we have one bunker that's full of a unified BMR variety and one that's a non-unified, the unified being a floury starch. And that on the spreadsheet the last 2 years it has the greatest yield drag, but has the greatest profitability per acre, just because it pushes components and really makes the cows milk well. It is more difficult to grow. That's why we still only fill one bunker with that and still fill another one with I'll call it a regular BMR.
Okay. Okay, thanks, Tony. Well, thank you guys for adding those in. And again, if you got pads or anything, if you think of something while we're going through this, jot that down and we'll head in from there. So if there's no other comments there, I think let's enter into some questions. And I guess that's kind of maybe what you're waiting for. But and there's a variety of questions we can ask. There's a million questions. So unfortunately, we're not in front of a large audience today because I guarantee you that group would have plenty of questions. But just let's kind of go back to the very beginning. One of the things when I talk to nutritionists, I say, what are the questions you have as a nutritionist for dairymen relative to corn silage? And one of the things they'll ask is, how do they pick their hybrids? What are they looking for in their hybrids, and what should I as a nutritionist recommend to my dairymen that are looking at hybrids? So give us a little talk about what you're looking for, and then how you evaluate those hybrids once you've selected them. How do you evolve to where you are today? I don't know who wants to start with that. Somebody can just lead off, if you would.
I'll go from south to north this time, huh?
Okay, well, that's good.
Tony, you're always we have to start in the middle sometime. So, oh man, that's been an evolution. Tony and I think go back way back PDMP and trials, and I got that started. That's been a strong influencer in our decision process. It's kind of neat to be able to see across companies and across hybrids and across growing seasons. We've been a host of the trials for several years now, which is kind of nice too, because then you actually see how they do on your in your environment. We look for a consistency. I typically don't pick a one-hit wonder. I'll say, you get 1 year and this one variety just off the charts. And a lot of times you look a second year and it's nowhere to be found. So, definitely do that. Again, it evolves. I mean, Tony mentioned unified. We've never done unified. We did plant it and harvested it this year. And I got that from talking to Tony. We haven't fed it yet, so I'm anxious to do that. But those are the kind of things that, and we're, we just did a small segment of it, enough to feed for a little while to get our taste in it, our foot in it. And that's often what we do. We have different bunkers, different size. So if we want to try something, we'll just put up enough to 125 acres to fill one of our smaller bunkers. And, we'll try that kind of walk before we run. And I mentioned we are blending conventional and BMR now. We feel that because of how we're grouped, we don't feel that the low groups need to BMR silage, nor do the dry cows, but we really want to get that into these front end cows and get them up and going and really cranking. And much like Tony, we had gone to 100% BMR, weren't getting the efficiency out of it we wanted. We went back in, put some conventional back in, and really saw results. So, it's kind of an evolution there.
Thanks, Walt. All right, Tony, you're up.
Okay, well, here I have to clarify that on our farm, I am not the primary person that's deciding on the varieties of corn that we're picking. However, I have enough information to be dangerous. So my brother's the one that does that, but typically we're very similar to what Walt does. We do look at PDMP trials. We have a couple companies that we do on-farm plots for, that we look at the results from those. But a lot of what we do is we'll utilize varieties that have worked really well in years past. And then each year we like to add, a smaller segment of sort of the newest, latest, and greatest that's being promoted by the seed companies, and give it a try, see what it does. And if we like it, we'll add some more the next year. We tend to not, we know that things can perform differently on different years. So we don't, if it does well one year, it doesn't mean we go whole scale the next year. We might go more of it. And then if it proves itself to be one of those mainstays, it becomes a big player in our program. But that's a little bit, a lot of it is just, what we hear from other farmers, from seed companies, trials, and then we ease our way into them.
Okay, thanks, Ben. Anything to add to that?
Yeah, it's kind of our thinking too. You don't want to put all your eggs in one basket, so to speak. Find something that works well, and year over year, we tend to stick with that a little bit. We also, like I said, we use the PDMP trials, and the plant digestibility keeps evolving year after year. I think that's a big factor. With the silos, we do have an opportunity to segregate a little bit easier, and we've seen some benefit in that, especially if it's going to be the first corn silage you feed of the new crop. We try to pick the best one and get it in there and get it inoculated correctly, so it's fermented properly and ready to go.
Okay. So two of you have talked about, I guess all of you have used either with the BMR, and of course that's a big deal on dairies. It's a big deal for seed companies, the ones that have them. You guys have all of you have been through kind of in and out in varying degrees. How do you expect that to continue, or what are you seeing down the road in terms of varieties and what the potential is there? And what advice do you have for other dairymen and or nutritionists to take to their dairymen relative to those? So again, an example would be, we talk about yield drag. Well, that's a trade-off. Some people think it's worth it. Some people don't think it's worth it. Talk a little bit about that, if you would. Ben, why don't we start with you, if you don't mind, and just.
Okay. Like I said, we've had some in some plots and didn't do as well. I think there's a place to try it again. We have some marginal ground, and a lot of it's BMR seems to take fertile ground. It's can't run out of moisture, I guess, is my experience, or what I've heard. Maybe Walt and Tony would obviously know more, but it can be a performer. But on the other hand, you don't want to have the crop failure in it also. So I think it's continually evolving, and I think there'll probably be a place for it in our program eventually. But at this point, we haven't gone that direction.
So Walt or Tony, do you feel you're pretty well set where you're at, or will you continue to evaluate and move those percentages, or what are you looking at down the road?
Well, I mean, I would say, we'll continue to look at what comes out. One of the things I would say about the BMR that I've sort of had to change my thinking a little bit, you almost have to treat it like a totally different feed than corn silage in some ways. It's, you know, you have the yield drag, but when you look at the value per pound that you're getting from it, it's, you can't really do a direct comparison to a conventional corn silage. And that's why we made up a spreadsheet to actually compare profitability per acre, because ultimately that's what we're looking for is, you know, the performance in the cows, the health and the profitability on our acre grounds. One of the things I think I'm kind of excited about and looking, you know, down the road, you know, we are really heavy on corn silage, but I'm kind of excited to see what kind of different things we can feed to create maybe a more diverse plate for the cow, you know, because that's what I think part of what we're seeing with feeding conventional and BMR is, you know, it's part of it is it slows it down, but I think part of it is just you have different starch digestibilities, you have different things are digesting at different places at different speeds, and I think there's maybe as much value in that as the specific things that are going into them.
Okay. Walt, any additional comments?
Kind of echo what these guys are saying. I think it just as it evolves, it comes down to digestibility, you know, and what the, you know, feeding that rumen, what's the cow need? I mean, they still need starch, they still need fiber, you know, protein, feeding those microbes. So I think what's trying to find that, you know, what's the optimum there to keep driving the next pound of milk. And, you know, I believe that we're going to continue to see evolution in that and improve plant genetics and that, you know, even the conventionals are more digestible than they were 5-10 years ago. So we keep raising that bar. So I think and I mentioned that we're doing alfalfa, low lignin alfalfa. I mean, we're seeing results of that. And, you know, I feel in our diets too. So it's interesting. You know, we may have to add fiber back in. I don't know, but trying to find that balance.
So question for you two guys that are feeding a blend of those, are you feeding those from different trenches or different bunkers, or do you have those layered into your trench, essentially 75, 35, 25?
We have different, completely separate bunks and to feed it so that we feel it's more accurate that way than trying to just blend it.
Okay. Tony?
Yeah, we have it separate bunks as well. Yeah. So that's what I didn't mention, but we are in the process of grading another pad. We'd like to put up another bunker. We aim to have usually 3 to 4 months carryover on corn silage, but with feeding the way we do and the amount of bunkers we are feeding, the last couple of years we've had to go into our BMR green, and we'd like to get away from that to be able to go into to actually have a bunker of BMR sitting there fermented as well.
Okay. So we talked a little bit about storages, not to go away from that, but we talked a little bit about primarily bunkers. Do you have any tips for us, Ben, the contrast or the differences in feeding your upright silos? Anything that you've learned, the contrast between that and the bunker? Anything you like better about one than the other that you'd want to share with? There are a lot of us who still have upright silos on farms around the Northeast. Maybe talk a little bit about that perspective.
Yeah, they both definitely have their benefits. In crops in an upright silo, they can last there for several years, and you don't have an issue once you get that original 5% shrink. I mean, they're ensiled in there, and they're going to keep. A silo versus a bunker, and nobody's lining up to climb the silo to lower the unloader and things like that, and the skid steer's never broken down at the bunker, so you get another one, you don't have that downtime. So they both have their place. When we're filling, you get a bad day and you're in the middle of a silo, it's not that hard to go out and get a few loads just to keep it fresh and to eliminate that spoilage, where if you you get caught filling a bunk, you have a layer in there, and if you want to something going on, you can just get a few loads in that silo, and you don't lose any quality. So, for the silos, you do have to be. A lot of ours are 100-foot tall and better. You have to watch your moisture at the bottom. You don't get too wet and juicing and have a liability that way, and deteriorates the silo.
Okay. And you mentioned earlier moisture, there's a little bit of variation on moisture. You're a little drier in the uprights. Typical.
Yeah, the larger ones, you got to get over 35% and up to 40 in our biggest one. So you should anyway.
Walt or Tony, you guys have both had some experience there. Anything you want to share on as you've transitioned into bigger piles and away from the upright silos? Any tips as far as maintaining forage quality, silage quality in them?
I guess this is my turn to start here, right, Walt?
Yeah.
I mean, we haven't bought a lot of bunker walls over the years. As we've grown, we've just moved walls wider, and which is a nice feature of bunkers. As you know, as the herd grows, you can just make a wider bunker, and you can manage a bigger face. We are right now with feeding the conventional and the BMR. We're managing 2 90-foot silage faces. We weren't sure how that would go at first because that's a lot of face, but it's actually been working out really well. I think the facer really helps with that. Having a tight pack and milling it off and keeping a nice tight face really helps. Yeah, I mean, it's we've found as well, and that's part of the reason why we've stayed as few bunkers as we have, is even with the best management, it's a challenge changing bunkers. Every time you change bunkers, seems like, you know, you have a DA or two, and it's even with the best management and trying to transition smoothly, it's hard to eliminate any problems from it.
Okay. Walt, anything else?
I'll just add that we found that the BMR, for some reason, wants to juice quicker than a conventional put in at the same moisture. So we've gone to, I pretty much won't harvest BMR unless it's 37 dry matter or drier. I shoot somewhere between 37 and 40, and that seems to do pretty well. Whereas most conventionals are going to, 60, 35 or 34 and refine. So I thought that's interesting. I just wanted to add that. So.
Okay. Any thoughts, guys, on as you've gotten larger, both of you guys are over 1,000 cows now. Any thoughts on piles versus, if you had to do over again, a pile versus the bunker walls? Any thoughts on that? Or are you satisfied with what you've got?
Well, for a number of years there, I thought what would be the ultimate would be one pile 1,000 feet long with just one wall in the back and sort of a slope down the front. And because then you'd only change bunkers one time per year. But then we started feeding 2 varieties of corn silage, and now I haven't figured out in my head how I would accomplish that. So in our area, I mean, land is expensive, space is an issue. The drive over piles, I can see a big benefit to those from cost, easy to fill, safety, but they do take up more space than having walls.
Right. Okay. Anything, Walt, not a comment there or not?
I don't have a lot of experience with drive over other than we just throw it. If we have some oddball thing, we'll stick it up against the wall and like do some hybrid drive over, which nobody likes to pack. So, yeah, we've kind of echo what Tony says. We do the wall thing and keep it contained air. So
Little scary on top of Ben's pile, looked to me like when he was finishing that one off in that first picture. How about it, Ben?
Yeah, you have to get brave to go on the edges when it gets that high. It seems like it doesn't look as it's worse than it looks, I guess, when you get up there. But and make it
You
work.
guys, to that end, just briefly, any comments on silage, on safety relative to that? I mean, any tips you have on filling those piles? Yeah, that's a big deal. And I think actually Ken Griswold was going to do a session on that as part of this program as well. But any tips on safety when particularly packing those big silos? Ben, do you anything you want to say?
Yeah, I don't, to have a good operator, I think, is key. I mean, somebody that's is comfortable with it. You don't want just anybody that can run the packing tractor on there. Just a good operator and not push the limits too much. So,
Okay. You other guys have anything to add to that?
Our bunkers, we have like pairs, so we have a common wall between, and then the outsides are dirt. So, you're only up, they're 12 feet deep. So on the dirt side, we only go anywhere from 4 to 6 feet above. So they're a lot more comfortable packing towards the dirt side than they are that, especially if that silo is open on the other side. I know my guys have said, boy, it'd be nice to fill them simultaneously just from that comfort level. But we try not to go crazy high just from a safety standpoint. I on the other end of this, the defacers, we want to make sure that whatever height we're going, we can comfortably reach with the loader so we're not undermining. I don't know how many people know, but I actually was buried once. Haley's collapsed on me, and I'm lucky to be here. So that, ever since then, we've been really adamant about not making sure we don't undermine when we're cutting, digging into the face. So.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I'll echo what Walt says about the defacer. I mean, we don't ever go higher than we can reach with the defacer, and we have our guys face with a slope, the top being in and the bottom being out to avoid that collapse. We have the last number of years made our piles pretty high above the walls, and I'm the one that's always forming the pile. And so I do stay on my radio. I don't let any of the packer guys go anywhere near where I feel they're dangerous. If I see them going, anywhere that I'm not comfortable with at all, I tell them, I said, it's not that important. We want good pack, but it's not worth somebody's life.
Right. Good feedback. Thank you for sharing that, guys. I do appreciate that. When we're talking about kind of a little bit of a different subject relative to once we get that stuff in and packed, a little bit about preservatives. What are you doing in terms of preservatives? What are your thoughts on that? And I know there's a whole raft of things, but just give us a summary of maybe how you've evolved and what you're doing now, what you think is the best program for you now relative to preservatives. So Tony, your picture's up. Why don't you start?
Okay. Yeah, as far as preservatives, we try to use a good reputable preservative, and then it really comes down to price per ton. We try to find a good reputable one that's at a really good price. We have the last number of years, we try to plan, and whatever bunkers we're going to be feeding out over the summer, we have been using one with Buchneri in it. And that has seemed to work well. I mean, we don't have any side-by-sides or, controls to say that it's this much better, but that's been our strategy.
So you only use Buchneri on the feed that you plan to feed in the summer? Is that what you're saying?
That's correct.
Okay. Walt, what's your strategy?
I think I've been quoted as short arms and deep pockets, so it's cheap. I kind of like Tony. We try to get something that's reputable, but there's a wide range in pricing. And last couple of years we've switched from more of a higher volume liquid to concentrated, and may not because I was disappointed in the performance of the other, but it's more of a it's a lot less you know, to add water partway through the day or a couple times through the day to the chopper. You can keep going. This stuff's got a 5-day shelf life in a refrigerator, so you know, you go out and you get rained out or whatever, you're not wasting a lot. So that's the main reason I switched to it. It's, you know, they all have their pluses and minuses, but that's where we've settled on recently.
Okay.
The other side of that, I don't do the Buchnerite thing, but we have started in the last several years, and at feed out in the summer, we're actually adding propionic acid at the mixer, and feel that that's really helped us with as far as heating in, you know, in the barn, in the bunks, you know. So we don't see the heating as much with the defacer. It really, you know, when we're able to just manage those faces so much better than we used to. So.
Okay. Good feedback. Ben, your thoughts on preservatives? What strategy there?
Everything we put up is getting an inoculant on it. We're also, like Walt said, using a propionic acid in the summertime. We put it through our molasses or our sugar blend, so it comes in there. Get the correct amount in. Also on the silos, when we get to the top, if we're going to seal one off, we use like a granulated propionic acid on them, and we also put sprinkle salt on at the blower. We do that at the bunk also, but the silos, if they're going to be capped off for a few months, get the propionic acid, get it cooled down quicker, and the salt to help preserve it. And before we put our plastic on our bunker, we also take like a 3-point hitch spinner fertilizer spreader and put a few 100 pounds of salt on the top of that too, drive over it and spread that on before we put the plastic on it.
You feel like that's helped? That you can see a difference when you do that?
Yeah, it doesn't hurt it, I guess. It
Okay.
helps.
Do you use the silo stop or saran wrap type covers on your bunkers, Ben?
Yeah, we do. It actually all comes on the same roll. So when we unroll, we get the black and the white and the saran wrap all on the same roll. Yes.
Okay. And Walt, you and Ben you and Tony are both doing that as well, right? The silo stop or saran wrap type product?
Yeah, and much like Ben, last 2 years we started using some of the all combined, like he said, which is putting it on. You know, it's much more efficient putting it on the silo than the
Right.
two layers. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we use it, but we're still wrestling all the sheets individually.
Once you get the other, you'll never go back, Tony. So just.
Oh man, I'm surprised you sprung for it, Walt.
I saved it in the inoculant. Don't worry.
Okay.
Now we're getting somewhere. This is the kind of discussion we like. This is good. So this brings me to something, well, just one thing, just real quick. Both of you guys have mentioned the silo defacers. Still have a lot of people not using them. Do you have any way to quantify that value? You've talked about less spoilage, less heating. Any way to quantify what that's been? Can you quantify that in pounds of milk or anything like that? Just thoughts on that.
I could speak to that a little bit. So when we built our bunk, that was we had to feel that out. We wanted to build these 16-foot walls, and nutritionist said we definitely have to have a facer. We can't be digging into that face. So we found a facer with a 10-foot extension on it. So it goes on our skid steer, and we can reach 18 to 20 feet high with it. It's definitely in the summertime, it definitely helps keep it compacted. You don't get it heated up. But another thing we've done with it is when we have to split a bunk, like we wanted to put rye or triticale in that corn silage pile in the spring, we can take a third or a half of that bunk and we can split it out. And where we split it, that facer keeps it tight enough. After you do take the rye or the triticale away from that side, you pile it against, you're not hardly losing any tonnage there. It might be an inch or so deep, but keeps it tight enough that the oxygen can't get in there and you keep a good face on it.
Okay. Tony, Walt?
I can't say we've done anything like really quantitative per se, that, spreadsheet type thing. But to Tony's point, I mean, we would try to avoid our biggest silo in the summer because we just felt like we couldn't keep it fresh enough, big face, and we would split it, and then you get a side that was, the side you left open was nasty, and you're throwing a bunch away. And with this, we just eliminated all that. So the amount of shrink and stuff has definitely been in our favor.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, we've been using the facer for so long. I can't really say that, what it's like without. The only thing I will say that, I think we have to give a lot of weight to the freshness and quality of feed that we're putting in front of the cows as far as their immune system. Every year we've been moving a little bit of rye at the end of the season, and to make room, because we don't have multiple bunkers to go on with rye, so we move the back of it, and we move it, repack it. It smells nice, it looks nice, it's not hot. But every year when we do that, our cows will spike 20 to 30,000 somatic cell count while we're feeding that pile out. And as soon as we go out of it, they go back down. And I think we're learning more that fresh quality feed that doesn't put a strain on the cows is really, really important.
Good comment, Tony. Good comment. And that brings up something just to talk about a little bit. If you guys would just share your situations on when we talk about feed storage or additional feed storage. In other words, what am I trying to say? That transition feed. In other words, how long can you feed before you have to feed new crop silage? And what are your thoughts on that? And what can you afford or not afford to do relative to that? And relative in particular to its effect on production or herd health or whatever. So Walt, your turn to go first.
Thanks. We've had carryover for quite a long time, so I'm not. My goal is a minimum of Thanksgiving, and January. Christmas is even better. And I know I fed 2 years ago on Christmas Day, and that was the day we actually started blending into that year's crop. So, I think definitely see a benefit of that consistency, keeping that, being able to keep in fermented feed that's been around for a while now. Tony's talked about the unified. We did put some of that up. I don't have that experience of, feeding something like that green, but I think if you have to, something like along those lines, or even BMR is more forgiving than a conventional processing. Getting that, we haven't talked a whole lot about processing, but that's really critical too. For, I believe, especially on the starch end, getting that more available.
Okay. Ben or Tony?
It varies year to year for us. One thing with the silos is you're always burying that fermented feed, so that's a struggle to save just one silo for that reason. Then you do save it, and when you start harvesting, you feed it for a while, but then you have that storage. You want to utilize that, so you recap it later anyway. You try to pick the digestible ones, and like Walt said, the starch is really important. Some of it will inoculate differently. So within 2 weeks, most of that starch is supposedly available. We don't have quite as much drop in production. It seems to be working, but yeah, it's always a struggle for us. So this year we're probably going to be 2 months worth of fermentation on our bunker before we open that. So we shouldn't be too bad a shape there.
Okay. Tony, anything any different?
Yeah, the other thing I had mentioned, we're grading off for another bunker pad. A lot of that really, we already have the carryover we need, but a lot of that has to do with flexibility. We'd like to get away from, having to time our silage so close each year, and give us a little more flexibility.
Okay. All righty. So How are we doing on questions, guys? Are we asking enough questions, or we got to slow down a little bit? Am I wearing you out? We're okay? Nobody fall asleep yet. I'm watching to see if anybody's dozing off, and
So far, so
anybody,
good. Yep.
anybody sleeping. Judd, I'll just ask you, Judd, is there anything you'd like to ask these guys? I see you're still on the screen. You're welcome to join in.
Yeah, no, I think you've covered most everything. Maybe see if everybody's got one or two items on, you know, the future of corn silage feeding. Are you going to go higher in corn silage feeding as you try to add more cows and maybe not add more land?
That's a good question. So you guys can weigh in on that.
I guess, you know, my thoughts on that, it sort of goes back to what I said about looking at maybe some of the different corn silages, almost looking at them as different forages. And so maybe it's, you know, maybe it is higher percentages of corn silage, but I think it'll probably still be important to have a variety of stuff in the ration from what I can see, because I think it's going to be tough to keep the cows fed the way you need to feed a high producing cow with just one single forage in, you know. So I think variety really does matter, whether it's different varieties of corn silage or different varieties of you know, forage altogether.
Okay.
I would concur. I mean, some of these conventional corn silages, you can get 40+% starch pretty easily. It's hard to balance some of these diets, you know, 100% with a forage like that. I mean, you've got to, you know, we still got to get enough the right, you know, blend of fiber and starch and those kind of things. So I think that I agree with Tony. I think that, you know, how can we have these different components and how can we manage them and getting that, you know, ultimate blend. And I think, you know, I still believe we haven't hit the peak on that yet. I think there's still room for improvement. So.
Okay. Ben, your thoughts?
Yeah, depending on the year for us, it seems, I guess corn silage is constantly evolving in the quality of the plant. You get a phenomenal growing year and when you're pushing the 30 tons per acre, and that corn silage is really laying on a lot of lignin if you don't have the right varieties or you not a BMR, those situations, and you know, with that high corn silage diet and so much lignin that can hold you back if you don't have the right varieties in the bunk to feed. Was one reason I maybe not so bought into a real high corn silage diet every year after year.
Okay. So we're getting toward the end here, guys. I mean, I could ask questions for 2 hours, but I don't want to do that to you. Judd will shut me off, or Colleen will shut me off before we get there. But I do have a question for you. Just a couple things as we finish. So some of you guys are skirting with 100 pounds of milk per tank in the average, and Ben, you're a little bit behind up there with your operations, a little behind that average. But I know you've been close to those numbers in the past. What's keeping you guys from 110 pounds of milk or 120 pounds of milk 2 years from now, 3 years? What are your limiting factors on your dairy that are keeping you from that next level of production? And not just milk production, but components or energy corrected milk, I guess I'd say that. Jump in, somebody, speak up.
Go ahead, Tony.
Well, Jeff, this is your classic question. I've been hearing this from you for 25 years.
You were only at 60 pounds then.
Yeah. I knew this was probably coming, and I've been thinking about it. I mean, some of the things that we're doing right now, you know, we're of course trying to breed the top end of our herd genetically, you know, with sex semen, and the bottom end with beef, trying to, you know, really ramp up the genetic pool, and hopefully we don't run into other issues by doing that. You know, with longevity in cows, we really do look at management traits on the animals as well. You know, I think keeping cows together, feet and legs, you know, udder health, those things do seem to be a limiting factor to keep the cows around, and we're really trying to work on that from the genetic end. Yeah, I'd say for us, a lot of it's, we're looking at genetics for some of that next 5 pounds right now.
Okay. Fair enough. Ben, how about you? What's your next step?
Yeah, I don't know if I have a good answer. You got to work with the cards you're dealt, I guess, so to speak, with the quality of forage and the weather and the year and how all that plays out. There's only so much you can control. But along with what Tony's saying, you can go down through your herd and you get those cows that milk 160, 170 pounds, and they don't have a problem doing it. So maybe to work more toward those cows that are genetically superior to the others that's a good option too, as long as, and continuing to work on your forage programs and the feed quality so the cows do have that potential to hit those marks.
Okay. Walt?
I would add, I think it always comes back to people too, and what can we manage? How good can we get our team to do all the little things that make a difference? Am I personally smart enough or to figure out what's holding us back and lead that team to do that? And I think the other piece I think for us is, I will echo what Tony said. We're doing some of that kind of thing too, trying to really be more specific on who we're breeding, getting trying to get offspring out of those best cows, female offspring. But also, I think that for us personally, I mentioned having some heifer raisers growing, and that's held us back some, and we've been raising some of our own and tracking them a lot better. And those animals are in their milking string now and typically out milking the other ones. And so we're really seeing that, some of that value, especially in those young calves on milk, and getting them going right, and some changes there, and really seeing that. And I'm excited as we bring more and more of them back into our herd, what their potential is. So I think that's one thing. It's can help us get to over 100 pounds consistently.
Okay. So another thing that I have jotted down here that I didn't ask before, talk just a little bit about economics of corn silage, and so a couple things there. How do you calculate value? In other words, when you're doing your analysis of whether low lignin alfalfa is a better return per acre or corn silage, for example, how are you evaluating? How are you accounting for that? Are you looking at cost of production or market value of shelled corn? What kind of numbers are you guys using? Walt, you got your pictures up, so you're up first.
I think it's hard to argue that corn silage, at least in the Northeast here, is the most profitable crop you can grow for to feed dairy cattle, just because of the yield, what it brings from a component, fiber, starch levels, those kind of things, the digestible fiber, and I'm one of the outliers now, I guess, that we still grow alfalfa. I am that's partly an influence of my father. I'll be honest. He was a big alfalfa guy, but we're also looking at it from a total farm management standpoint and for rotation and those kind of things. But we've also seen, we've gone to being able to hay in a day, literally mow in the morning, chop in the afternoon. And I'll tell you what, that is some really good feed, and the cows really respond to that. So I think, and again, how's that we feel that's fitting in with our corn silage diets. So I think it's a combination of things. We've done enterprise accounting for a long time, so we feel like accounting's not perfect, but we try to be consistent within our own operations. So we have corn silage as its own, or corn as its own enterprise, and alfalfa as its own. And so we try to get a pretty good handle on what it costs us per ton. And it's certainly cheaper to raise corn silage than alfalfa typically. And when you double crop with a triticale in those same acres or a rye, man, it's really hard to beat. So, and we're doing more and more of that and we're doing it close acres. And one of the ways that we're adding to that, and Tony's, I know, been doing some of that, we actually added drag lining. We've done some in real close acres, and we invested in a pipeline to do more this past year. So we're able to increase those acres because we're able to get more efficiently get the manure out twice a year and in high volumes where we need it, because the crops are taking off those nutrients. So that, it's technologies like that that allow us to go, to expand that. And we did really well on triticale this summer, ran out of it in early September, but the cows milk well through the summer on it. So I think, there's benefits all the way around there.
Okay. Ben, comments on that?
Yeah, corn silage is hard to beat as far as milk, tons of milk per acre or milk per ton. I guess we value it at market value. That was your original question there.
Right. Okay. When you say market value, based on the cost of shelled corn, or on what if you had to sell corn silage off the farm?
To sell corn silage off the farm, yeah. Well, they
Okay.
kind of go hand in hand.
Okay. Tony, anything different?
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess for us, it's the double cropping acres, is what really pays per acre on the value of what we can get. And it does work. We do drag line a lot of our double cropped acres, and we're hoping to expand our pipeline and do even more. And so again, that comes back to what we're able to utilize nutrient wise on those acres is high as well, because we're getting such high volume of forages off the acres, so we can utilize a lot of nutrients close. One of the things I think I'm looking forward to the future, it doesn't have to do with corn silage, but in terms of the small grains, like this year, our triticale, we have a triticale and perennial ryegrass mix, which some guys have had some really good success with. Again, I think it goes back to the diversity in the rumen. And I'm anxious to see what kind of blends and mixes we can do in the future to kind of, I guess, aid in some of that crop rotation deficit that we're having with the intense double cropping, but also, feeding the rumen with a variety of things.
Okay. Good comments. Good comments. So if you'll recall with us, this is in the Penn State Nutrition Conference, and we're talking to primarily a group of nutritionists here, guys. Probably the last question I'm going to ask you, I guess, is what do you look for in a nutritionist? What are you looking for in a nutritionist? And the second part of that question is, what questions can he be asking you, or how could he challenge you to be better forage producers? So that's kind of a two-pronged question, but what are you looking for in that nutritionist, and how can he better serve your needs at the dairy? So I don't know where we're at in the order here, but anybody
I'll go. I don't know that I'm up, but long time, and I've had the same nutritionist for a long time. But prior to him, I wanted somebody that was independent, that was really looked for what the farm's best interests and economic interests are. My economic interests are our farms, and then also somebody that's all in, that they're not just looking at one facet of the business, or that they're recognizing, hey, we're having some challenge with a cow or a group of heifers or whatever, and what are we doing? And then also advising and on these, silage hybrids and haylage hybrids. And, I'll say that our nutritionist, he literally comes out and we start chopping, and every time we change to a different bunk or different variety, he's out there and shaking the forages and helping, calling me and say, hey, let's make this adjustment the next load and see what that looks like, whether it's a length of cut or processing. So we try and dial it in right up front. And, and then we're both in it all together. We either put a great bunk in or a poor bunk in. But then, it's not finger pointing. It's saying, okay, we did good or we didn't. Now what are we going to do? What are we going to do to correct it? So that's, I guess, my big thing is that, really, really engaged there. So.
Good comments, Walt. Tony?
Yeah, I mean, I would echo, we also utilize an independent nutritionist. Also, he's also our vet. So he's probably going to be tuning in this conference. So a shout out to our vet. But it's what he brings is, the consulting end, and he's very, very slow to add just any new, we'll say, technology and feed ingredient or whatever. He wants to know the science works behind it, that's proven, very, very cost conscious in our ration. And also then, he feeds a lot of other cows, and he's able to see, what other farms are doing that's working and bringing it to us, and vice versa, what we're doing that's working and taking it to other farms. And that shared intellectual knowledge is really, really important to us.
Okay, good comments. Ben?
Yeah, also work with independent nutritionists, very long relationship with him. Just the wealth of knowledge that he brings to the table and the experience, the amount of the cows he feeds and feedlots. And anytime I have a question or an issue, he's quickly getting back to me and help walking us through it, no matter what it is. He challenges me also. The last time he was here, he asked me, what's the biggest challenge in front of you right now? What do you want to, if you could, what would you be correcting in the next 3 or 4 months? So it goes both ways. I like the idea of an independent and having the experience to come to the farm every time he's here and know what our options are. So it's a great asset.
Okay. But you guys all agree that having someone to challenge you on a daily basis is a good thing then? You're willing to take those challenges?
It depends if he's going to watch this or not, what I say.
He's watching.
Yeah, definitely. It's fun. Yeah, keeps us on our toes. So.
Okay. Well, I want to thank you guys a bunch for taking time to do this. And like Judd said, any final comments as we kind of wrap this thing that as you've thought about other things that we may have missed, or any final comments any of you have? Anybody?
Looks like everybody's, yeah. Thank you so much, everybody. I really appreciate it.
You've done a really nice job, and thank you for sharing. And hopefully it's to the benefit of our contemporaries of the dairymen and of our nutritionists. I think we'll all benefit from this discussion, hopefully, and ultimately our cows will benefit from it. And welcome you guys to join us at the Penn State Nutrition Conference. And for those of you watching this, want to specifically thank these dairymen, each of them, for the time they've invested and putting these thoughts together. And we're really fortunate to be in an industry where people are so willing to share their successes. That doesn't happen in every industry, but we're really very fortunate to have good people that are willing to help their neighbors get better at what they do. And I really want to thank you guys for doing that. So, Judd, anything else that you want to tie up with?
Nope, that's it. Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.